Hello and a very warm welcome to the Love Audio Cafe podcast, episode 3. My name is Paul Webber. Very good to be here today, and thank you so much for joining the podcast. We're going to be talking today to a very special guest of mine that I met online, virtually, back in April of 2020 and also again in August of 2020, when both of us ended up doing quite a challenging thing to go live every day in April and then every day in August. It was called LEDA, L-E-D-A, live every day in April or August. And it was a challenge to go live every day. We were set different tasks and things. So I think between us, both of us are now quite au fait with the kind of online streaming thing that we do. And we do videos, of course, on our YouTube channels and various other places. But I wanted to bring this chap on to talk about his particular role in the community, very, very useful role in the community. And without further ado, let's meet our guest this afternoon or this morning, wherever you're listening to this, of course, around the world or whatever time it might be where you are. Please welcome onto the Love Audio Cafe, Mr. Bruce Cameron. And there he is, drinking a coffee.
Good morning.
You see, that was great timing, by
Indeed.
the way. You picked that up just in time, so that was brilliant. I haven't got any cakes to offer you, unfortunately. And it's a slightly different background
I'm off cakes.
to normal. You're off cakes at the moment.
Just off cakes at the moment, yes. I'm just looking after my svelte figure.
Brilliant stuff. So, Bruce Cameron, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to briefly touch on the fact that we met, as I said before in the intro, that we met during LEDA. You did the April one, didn't you?
No, I didn't actually. I knew of it.
Do you know what I thought it was?
No.
Okay.
It was just the August one, which was interesting. Do apologise if you see some movement just to the side, which I don't think people can just now. It's homeschooling time, and I have one of my daughters sitting here, just being nice and quiet, so we should be all right.
Well, it's very important. Education is important. So, if you're able to keep that going whilst they're at home, then fair play to you. My two youngsters are 26 and 29, so they've long flown the nest. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. But anyway, it's great to have you on the show. I wanted to touch on the things that you do in your role as well, I won't give it away. I'll let you describe it. But to me, it's a fantastic service to the community that you offer. Just tell us a little bit about the role that you play in the community, Bruce.
Sure, yes. Well, I'm a sign language interpreter. I have been qualified now for 11, 12 years. The reason that I can sign is because both my parents are deaf, and it's my first language. And in 2009, I took the decision to get fully qualified. Did that through the University of Leeds. It was a 2-year course that we did. Qualified. It was a Scottish government-funded pilot, and what they did is they took 10 people who had experience up to a certain level of signing and put them through this 2-year course at the University of Leeds. I was based in Glasgow for it, so once a month we had full weekends of teaching. That came up, went through it, and that qualified at the end of 2010. So yeah, that's been qualified 11 years, but physically doing it for 12. And prior to that, both my parents are deaf, so I've signed since before I could speak.
Wow.
So yes, so that's what I do. I go around. Work has changed, and I think we'll probably cover this later on. But I cover anything from police, courts, theatre, you name it. I'll be there.
This channel obviously is about audio mainly. Whereas your work is mainly about the visual aspect and how you help the hearing impaired community. You've told us about how you kind of first got into it, and from an early age, it sounds like. Is it a difficult language to learn?
Yes and no. Likewise, for example, for me to learn a foreign language like French or German or Spanish, I struggle. I really struggled with the spoken language. Sign language, for me, it's a natural thing. So I don't know if some people just pick it up and just go with it, and it's just a natural thing for them. I think it's all really dependent on you as a person. I think for somebody to not know the language to become a fully qualified interpreter, that period of time with all the courses takes about 8 years to do. So you can go from zero to, I'm not using the word hero, but yeah, from zero to qualified in probably about 8 years.
8 years, that's a long time. I mean, I did French at school, and although I came out with a grade 1, it was pretty tough, and I've kind of forgotten a lot of it now. And I guess if I'm in the country, and it would probably all come flooding back to me. But the amount of memory that you take up with all of these things that you have to learn, it must be quite tricky. And is it different around the world? Is there a different language, for instance, for the UK community compared to the States, for instance, or a different country? Is signage a global language? That's what I want to ask, really.
No, it's not. So what we have British Sign Language, which is BSL here. In America, there's ASL, so it's completely different. Where it started from, if I remember my history, and if somebody's watching this who knows their history with sign language, they're going to probably come down on me in a ton of bricks. But it started off in France. What you had is you had the French system and a British system, and the guy from France went to America and set up a university, Gallaudet, in I think it's in the East Coast somewhere near Washington, maybe up round about there, and it's a university for the deaf. And because French Sign Language is different from British Sign Language, it just kind of took off. And in Britain, we use 2 hands to do the alphabet. In America, they just use the 1. So there are differences. But if you look at, I think it's Britain, Australia, New Zealand, some parts of India possibly, and there's a 5th place, they all use very similar sign language. So you could get by. I mean, I could work in Australia and New Zealand if I had to. But anywhere else in the world it's completely different. So France, Germany, Poland,
I was going to say,
it's all different.
Is that because the universal language, or the predominant language in the world, apart from Chinese, is English? So is that why it's a kind of universal language, signing?
No, it's the thing is, American Sign Language is very different from British Sign Language, and we both speak English. So there's a huge difference. Now, not only is there a huge difference internationally, there's differences locally. So the signs that I would use in my hometown would be different from the signs that I would use down your neck of the woods.
Yeah, we all talk a bit daft down here in Devon, believe me, my lovely. Yeah. But it's interesting.
So there are differences.
Yeah, so it's a bit like dialect. You're from north of the border, and you're from 9 miles south of Glasgow. You mentioned East Kilbride, is that correct?
East Kilbride, yeah, so that's where I live. That's where we live just now. However, I'm originally from Aberdeen, which is 160 miles further north.
Wow.
From us. So the dialect, the regional dialect in Aberdeen, spoken wise, is different from it is here in Glasgow.
Sure.
But however, signing is still different. The sign language in Aberdeen is different from it is in Edinburgh, from Glasgow, Leicester, London.
So it
Wales.
really is like regional dialect in that sense, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but we still understand each other.
Yeah, because I guess there's an overall underlying way of telling people certain words and phrases using your hands and using gestures, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And context is a big thing as well. Sure.
Have you done work for because you watch the morning news and things like that, and they have a signer stood right next to them doing the bits and pieces, or at least a green screen image of that person. Is that something you've done in your career so far?
Yes, I in fact, on Facebook or Twitter, if you do a search for Scottish Government, you'll see there's a picture of me interpreting for Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister. So that was just last week. So wow. I've done pieces, but I don't do the daily briefings as such, because that's the Scottish Government. When I've been interpreting, and I'm doing this next Tuesday as well, so it's every Tuesday, is at the Scottish Parliament, which is separate from the Scottish Government, but the Scottish Parliament. So we do an in-shot interpreting service for the Scottish Parliament TV.
Is that what they call Holyrood?
They use that clip. Holyrood, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Holyrood.
Yeah.
And they use those clips into social media. So everybody, they use the video, the audio, the signing, and subtitles. So it's totally inclusive. Anybody can watch it on social media.
Excellent. It fascinates me. I've never been able to do it, and never attempted to do it because I don't want to make a fool of myself, and I wouldn't know what I was doing. But it does fascinate me. How has the pandemic, dare I mention it, but how has the pandemic affected your work between, let's say, last March and now?
It's really interesting because prior to the pandemic, we were doing conferences. We were away. I mean, I worked for the police, the court systems, and everything just stopped overnight. We couldn't visit. Now, things like hospital appointments, some were still going ahead, and we would get called out for hospitals. If somebody was getting arrested, we'd still get called out for that. However, meetings, conferences, all that sort of stuff just quickly stopped. However, the advent of Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, which is one of the newer ones, Zoom especially came on the scene, and I had to convert this bedroom into an office to get all my tech in, and basically grab the bull by the horns and just go for it and just upgrade my equipment, because what we recognised was that deaf people need a higher quality of video stream. So I thought the internal cameras on laptops are terrible, and
They are.
the angles are awful. So I thought I need to do this properly. So this is what I've kind of ended up doing. And I would say that I've probably been busier now than I have been prior to the pandemic.
Wow. So you've managed to adapt and really, not take advantage of the situation, but certainly, by helping people, like you say, in environments such as hospitals and places like that, where they haven't got the means of you being face to face, but you can certainly do it over a screen and in good quality as well. So you've really adapted, yeah.
Absolutely. So a lot of the things there's a service up here called Contact Scotland, which is a national service, and it's one of the big agencies runs it, and I covered a few shifts for those. However, for other things, for people who are full-time work, and they use Access to Work, which is a government-funded service, which allows them to pay for my time. For those meetings, I use this setup and system I've got here, and it works really, really well, and I'm really pleased with it. I think one of the big things for me was how do we work together as interpreters, because usually what we find is in the real world, at a conference or at a meeting, and you have two interpreters working together, because processing time, you only have 20 minutes that you can really cope with. If it's a really heavy, in-depth subject, you might only be able to concentrate for 10-15 minutes before your brain starts turning into mush, and you can't process the English into sign language and continue listening. So your other interpreter swaps over and you help each other out.
Right.
On Zoom, that's impossible. That's impossible in Zoom, because you've got the screens. I'm looking at the deaf person signing. I'm speaking what they're saying.
Yeah.
However, if I miss something, there's no way for the other interpreter to speak to me at the same time on a Zoom call.
Because they're going to be talking over you or talking over the deaf person.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and they can't sign it, because that then distracts. I can't see it. So what I need is a feed, an audio feed into my ear.
Yeah.
So I know what's being said. So that's where I stumbled across vMix, and was able to put something together.
Well, you just mentioned one aspect of it, and we're both using vMix today for this particular conference, for this particular podcast. Just describe the tech that you've got for the geeks amongst us, because we're all very keen to know what you use. So, microphone, camera, that kind of stuff, stuff that people would understand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it's I've kind of gone overboard, I think, and I signed up to the what do you call it, the live streaming pros class. I think it was a 3-month thing, and this was back probably March, April. It would have been it would have been after August. No, March, April, May, roughly about then. And went through all the tutorials. I thought I need to get all these bits of equipment, so I did. I ended up getting the Lewitt white microphone, because that's what they said, and personally I think it looks cool, so that's what I got.
It sounds great, by the way. So you've obviously bought a decent microphone. in order to be able to carry out the sort of things that you need to be doing. So yeah, well done.
Yes. So what I did was at the start. Now, this is the interesting thing is that this is what I thought I needed. However, when you're signing, this gets in the way. So I can't have this when I'm working. So what I change it to, I change it to one of these.
Oh, it's like a headset with a tiny like a microphone on a boom arm. Yeah. Oh, perfect.
And that's XLR. So that plugs into my Go XLR, which I thought I need one. Turns out you don't need one, but now I've got one. I couldn't do without it.
For the benefit of those that don't know what a Go XLR is, just explain what it just in a nutshell, in layman's terms, what does it do?
It basically takes the audio from here into there, and it also stores samples, so you can play funny samples, and it changes your voice. Like, can I change my voice? Is that all right?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Changes your voice like this.
Wow.
Yeah. which I don't need for my work. However, I also do quiz nights on a fairly regular basis, and it comes in very handy for that. So now I've got it, I can't get rid of it.
Brilliant. Well, it's a good tool, and also it's about, for us particularly with live streaming, it's about creating that engagement, isn't it? So if you can change your voice and people react to it, then it's worth that little button on the mixer. Is it is it a very expensive piece of kit? Did it cost you a lot?
It was £300.
Okay.
I got it. I think I got it for, I think it was about £300 now. I got it second hand from somebody who had bought it brand new and never used it, and all the wrappers were still on it, and the box was sealed. And to be honest, you couldn't buy them at all on Amazon. It wasn't stock until October, and I got mine very, very early on.
Wow!
Really pleased. Got it. I think I'm taking a bit of a potluck gamble here. I thought, because it was through Facebook Marketplace. It arrived, and it's been great since. So yeah.
Good. So
we've
covered
about that, but
no, it's good. But on the audio side, we've covered microphone. You've got the Lewitt microphone, the white one as you've described, which is brilliant, but it does get in the way, so you use your headset. We've talked about the Go XLR, which is your mixer, if you will. I've got the Studio Live 32SC from PreSonus, which is way overkill because it's a 32 channel digital mixer, and there's no way that in a million years that I'd ever use 32 channels unless I was mixing a band on stage and then have everything routed through to the stream. But yeah, that's never going to happen. But yeah, talk us through the camera that you use, because obviously with regards to the hearing impaired, they need to be able to see you and clearly and signing and all that kind of thing. So camera is very important. What do you use?
Yeah, so camera-wise, I've got a Sony a5100. It was I think it's the minimum requirement that you need to get live streaming out, and the fact that it does clean HDMI sorry, I think something's just fallen over in my room there. I do apologise for that. The A5100 is something that I could have gone maybe a little bit higher, but at the time, all I was looking for was something to output HD 1920 1080 with clean HDMI, a small compact size, and it absolutely works brilliantly. Now, it did come with the stock lens, I think it's a 16mm to 50mm zoom. That's
exactly what I'm using right now.
I did purchase the Sigma one. Now, the Sigma one is a 1.4, is it f1.4?
F1.4, so that gives you the kind of 16mm, yeah, which gives you a bigger depth of field, I think, and the kind of a blurred background that some professionals like to use. For me, I don't. I'd like people to see what I've got in the background rather than have it blurred. If I changed that and had some of these kind of LED lights and stuff like that, and it was all dimly lit, then yeah, maybe I'd want to blur the background. But currently, I'm fine with it as it is.
So with the A5100, with the 16mm f1.4 lens that I have, that gives me the separation at the back. Now, interpreting wise, I was getting a little bit bored personally with all these interpreters, and I do apologise if any interpreters watch this, that with the plain blue or the plain green screens, there's nothing, it's just not real. And we go on and work with deaf people, and deaf people do not have plain green screens. They have their living rooms, they have natural screens in the background. So my opinion, this is just my opinion, and it's maybe a wrong opinion, but my opinion was, why should we change it? Why should we be different? So yes, professional people want to think. So what I decided to do is I added a little bit of colour. Now I do change the colour when I'm interpreting. I change it to a bit more of a kind of a lighter colour, so it's there's more of depth there. I get rid of this microphone, and then Pac-Man, by the way, Pac-Man does get switched off, so that it gets switched off. So
yeah,
there's less of that. I've been tweaking the system. I've been tweaking the settings. I think ultimately I'll have to move out of this room because one of the kids is probably going to have to come in here as a bedroom, and I'm going to have to look at revamping it. In my head, I know what I want to do is almost have like a double-sided. So we've got a desk here, and then the camera could twist round. Be back in focus.
So then
and
you've
then
got
the other side,
you've got a different set then. So one for doing your quizzes, for instance, and your other interviews and your other Zoom calls and things, and then the other one for the sign-in.
Yeah, with maybe with a green screen, like a proper. So I could chroma key it. So if I'm doing chroma keyed conferences, I could do it from the other side.
Yeah,
and that's something I need to look into and figure out what kind of space I need for that.
Sounds like a good idea. Listen,
Soon.
I wanted to ask you about whiskey because
yes.
I'm more of a Southern Comfort man myself, but I know being Scottish, you have an affinity with whiskey anyway, north of the border, and I appreciate that. So tell us a little bit about the whiskey tasting courses that you belong to and you regularly take part in, because I've seen one or two of them on your YouTube channel. But tell us a little bit more about how you got involved with that.
Yeah, so I was involved with a craft beer podcast last year, a couple of years ago, and definitely before lockdown happened, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, but then it got to a point where the craft beer podcast was about a specific brand of beer, and it just wasn't for me. The whole, I just didn't feel the subject, the subject matter just didn't pull me in enough for it to be of interest. So kind of stopped doing that podcast, helping out a friend, and it's going from strength to strength. Funny that it's going strength to strength when I've left. So
and so's the level of the whiskey and the craft ales, no doubt. As regards strength, that is.
Yes, absolutely. But with whiskey, a friend of mine gave me a bottle once, and he says, "Well, we'll go through it, and we'll just, I'll teach you how to drink whiskey." And I'm now starting to pick up the notes. Anyway, a group of friends. I was never in that group of friends, but one guy that I knew had a whiskey and cigar club. What they used to do was once a month they would visit each other's houses. So there'd be maybe say 6 or 7 of them, and this week it would be say John's turn, and everybody would go into John's house with a bottle that they've brought, and they would give the bottles, which are all wrapped and hidden, give it to whoever's in the house, either the partner. The partner would then pour them all out into the glasses and bring them through, and so nobody knew which brands of whiskies there were, and they would taste them and note them and figure out what this is, and they would rate them, and at the end of the night the winner got a prize, I think it was, and the loser got a gold painted bottle of probably the cheapest whiskey you get. And it was and that was just a group of friends meeting up on a monthly basis. That's all it was. Pandemic hits and they started doing the whiskey club online. However, somebody else wanted to do it, then somebody else, and then all of a sudden it grew and grew and grew, and now they do it on a monthly basis. So I enjoy it. It's on a night, instead of going to the pub, I can sit in here with they give you 5 whiskies, and they talk you through the different whiskies. Now, with the tech side, what I like to do is I thought I'll just stream it to show people what other people are getting up to, and that's basically all I wanted to do. And the guys and girls I've said, actually, we quite like you streaming it. Now, I've made it's almost like not a promise, but I've said to them, the only people that will appear on screen are the people who are hosting the Zoom event. So none of the other guests will appear.
So the participants that are enjoying the whiskies that they've been sent, or the cigars or sweets, whatever comes with it, won't be on screen. You can hear them.
No.
They can interact, but they won't be on screen. So
Yes.
it's just yourself and just the chap that's organised the thing and from the whiskey house, yeah?
That's exactly right. It just stops any issues. So sometimes I'll have me in the corner with them, and my initial idea was to do something like this, but have 2 or 3 of my friends on a vMix call chat like that we're doing here,
Sure.
in with Zoom in the background. So it's almost like a watch party.
Okay.
And then the three or four of us could have that conversation whilst they're doing their thing. So it's like our small group having our own little thing and having a laugh
Just
with the main group. So
just thinking about that, you could have a large TV screen to the side of you, just facing the camera, if you will, but with their photos on it, with their images on it, if you will, and then
yes,
and have the audio piped through to your system, and then you could interact with them, couldn't you? I guess that might be a way of bringing them in and continuing that
Absolutely.
conversation and having that round robin thing. Yeah, so that might be a good idea.
Yeah. So that was something. So we tried, and we did. I did it once through vMix, through this software, and we had the windows. So I think there was 4 of us that came in, and then but we were just playing with it, and it didn't work as well as I would like. And I think there were some things that were a bit missing. But listen, you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and the thing is that we're all very new to this tech. I mean, you and I have been live streaming since April, May, June, perhaps of last year, and it's the first time we've ever done it. A lot of people that are on these Zoom calls have never used Zoom in their life before, but nowadays it's quite normal, if you will, to have a Zoom conversation with somebody on a different side of the country or different side of the world, even. So we're all kind of getting used to it, aren't we?
Yeah. That's right. It's I've had to quickly, like yourself, had to quickly get used to the tech and how it works. And I have been asked to do a presentation on a brief masterclass on interpreting online, and how to use the tech and what menu settings. Because I've failed to realise, I realise this now, is that there are people out there, as you say, they don't know what a browser is, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
it's just that there are interpreters out there who are a lot older than I am. They're maybe coming to the end of their careers, but they still need to work. But they've never had to touch a computer in their life. So I've done a short session. It's 45 minutes, and it's a pre-recorded session. And it's interesting because having done the old live thing, I felt really awkward not having any interaction, and it was almost like me presenting.
Yeah.
Whereas I was thinking, right, this is the menu for this, and I know personally as somebody who watches these sort of things, I would like to go in and ask the questions as it's happening.
Yeah, and so you would need to in that case you would need to invite people to a live event and then get their feedback that way, wouldn't you? Whilst you're still teaching them, which again is logistically quite difficult to kind of manage because you're self-op. So like I am, there's nobody else in the studio. There's no producer. I'm from the radio background, so I've never had a producer in my life. It's always been self-op, and so you're the same. So you're going to have to operate the buttons, operate the sound, make sure their sound's all right. All of these kind of things go through your mind whilst you're trying to, incorporate other people into your stream. So yeah, it logistically it could be quite difficult, but it could be a great way of teaching people. But like you say, it's difficult when you're doing a video on demand, if you will. So you're doing the tutorial, but you're not interacting with anybody. So the only person listening is the microphone, right? That's your audience.
Absolutely.
And you just have to
cope
with that.
I found that difficult. Yeah, I found that difficult because you're going through things, and I know that for me watching it, okay, yeah, and I want to ask that question. I can't ask that question because the time's passed. Now, there is a Q&A afterwards,
right.
I think, for tech-based problems.
Yep.
Personally, I think it needs to be real time. I think that if people come in and ask the questions, in and out, and you can cover things, because I've seen it, and we've seen it in the live streams that I watch, is that, oh, I've got a question, but then somebody's already asked it, and you go, that's fine, that saves me asking it. So
well, that might be you're bound to get frequently asked questions, aren't you? FAQs, you're bound to get that, and like you say, that could be duplicated. Having said that, also on the live streams, and you'll probably find this as well, is if you get quite a lot of interaction, you may have missed one or two questions. So it might be better to structure
Absolutely.
it, and get those people to drop you a message or something with a question, and then you can address it in a subsequent video, perhaps. I don't know, maybe that's an idea.
Yeah, sure. So this conference is happening not this weekend, but next weekend.
Okay.
I've done my 2 pre-records, sent them in, they're happy with them, and then there's an hour of Q&A afterwards. So I purposely at the start of the recording said, after this we will have the Q&A, so put your questions in as the video goes on, and we'll cover them later on. So fingers crossed it works. Fingers crossed.
That sounds brilliant. Listen, I know we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining me on the stream today, Bruce. It's been marvellous. And for those of you who want to find out about Bruce's services, either the whiskey side of things or indeed the signing and that kind of thing, just give us some feedback as to where they can find you, Bruce. How can they get a hold of you?
Thing is, with the I go by the name Brulafu, so it's Brulafu. If you just search for that, you'll find me. Now, I have started pushing more stuff onto YouTube. That's probably more of the whiskey stuff. I started broadcasting my quiz nights, which I did on a Saturday night. I haven't done much of the interpreting stuff, but my website, www.brulafu.com, that information is there if anybody's watching and is looking for an interpreter. But it's just, I haven't really publicised and pushed myself as much as I probably should have. But I say the YouTube channel, brulafu.com, is where I'm starting to push a lot more stuff out to.
That's brilliant stuff. Bruce, thanks very much indeed. Thanks again, and take care. Have a great day.
Thanks very much, and next time I'll not wear the hat.
I like the hat. The hat can stay. It's fine.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Cheers, then. Thanks, Paul.